my child, to obtain perfect purity of heart, it is not enough to cherish a good will, to meditate and pray frequently, to confess often and devoutly. These means are very efficient and necessary, and therefore never to be omitted nor neglected. But alone they do not suffice, since they are not wont to pluck up completely the roots of vices and defects. It is necessary then to use besides another means, whereby you may, so to speak, exterminate the noxious roots, and thus render your heart perfectly clean. These sweet and wholesome effects are produced in a marvelous manner by self-examination and exercise, apparently trifling indeed, and a small matter, but in itself very efficient, and more deeply penetrating than any two-edged instrument, reaching even to the dividing of the soul, and the discerning of spirits, and searching into the thoughts and the intentions of the heart. Nor does it serve merely to root out evil habits and defects, but, what is more wonderful, to acquire solid virtues, and even to attain to perfection. This self-examination is threefold. The first, which is used to collect oneself in the heart, and inspect it, for a short time, observing, when it is moved, and with what things it busies itself, or what it has done, and in what manner, what it should do in the future, and how. Opportunities of performing a very short self-examination of this sort are wont to present themselves frequently. When, for example, you begin any more of the more important actions of the day, and when you have performed them. When something is presented to your senses, or to your mind, by which you may be allured, or tempted, also when you have fallen into some defect. When you meet with any difficulty, which may occasion trouble, or disturb you, and lastly, as often as, during some length of time, you have not looked into your heart. Now this can be easily done, at any time, and in any place, even while others are present, and without attracting their attention. In the exercise itself, there is no difficulty whatsoever. At first, indeed, some attention should be used, but no straining of the mind, and in a short time, you shall begin to acquire a holy and consoling habit, and gather from it the sweetest and most wholesome fruits. The second is a general examination, by which twice, or at least once, every day, you devote a short time, some minutes, exclusively to asking of yourself an account of your way of living. Having briefly returned thanks to God, and begged for divine light, inspect and scrutinize how since you did last examine yourself, in your exterior and interior. Examine your thoughts, words, deeds, see where you have sinned, or failed, then, carefully mark each sin or defect, at least mentally. If you have practically learned something of the interior life, place your heart near to mine, compare, and notice the difference between the thoughts, sensations, and actions of both. After, in this manner, you have discovered your faults and failings, then see, and acknowledge, your unthankfulness for my divine favors, form an act of sorrow, as perfectly as possible, beg for grace to amend yourself, and to make better progress. Lastly, the particular examination is that, by means of which you exerted yourself, to root out, separately, only one vice or defect, at a time. Most wonderful is the power, and the incredible, the efficacy, of this exercise. Would that you could understand it well, my child, and that you did perform it, in a proper manner. There is no habit so deep-rooted, no vice so great which, by this means, cannot be overcome, and subdued. For with God's grace, it can, in some manner, do all things. How many sinners have, by its means, been freed from vices, which had grown on them, like a second nature? How many souls has it enabled to cleanse themselves, thoroughly? How many has it helped to reach perfection? Whatever defects the new may have, be of good cheer, my child, you are sure of victory, sure of future freedom, if you use this means diligently, and perseveringly. Attack first that vice or defect, that may be a stumbling block, or a just cause, of offense to your neighbor, afterwards, the one that seems to be your chief fault. When the leader is overthrown, then the rest are easily overcome. Now, your method of proceeding shall be this: resolve firmly and considerately, that during the day, you will shun what you make chosen to be avoided in a particular manner, at the same time, beg for grace, that you may be faithful to your resolution. Then twice, or maybe just once a day, according as you make the general self-examination, you shall also search, and see how often, since the last scrutiny, you have failed in your special resolve, and mark the number of times. Afterwards, grieve not only for your faults in general, but also for these defects in particular, and resolve again to be especially on your guard against them, and for this end, also special grace. Meanwhile, my child, when you perceive yourself growing, in some way, indifferent or careless, you inflict upon yourself some small punishment, and this, as often as you offend against your particular examination. But, so that you may use rightly and constantly these and other means, you need a guide to direct, to teach, to fashion you, to keep you in, or stir you up and cheer you on, at all times. No one, when left to himself, can walk with safety in the path of the spiritual and interior life, for often he will be exposed to the danger of going astray, of losing heart, or falling into the snares of the foe. No more of even perishing. Were you a saint, or a chosen apostle, you would need some guide. Was not Paul, although a vessel of election, to carry my name among the nations, at my command, instructed and directed by Ananias? Were not the saints trained to holiness by others that led a holy life? Pray therefore, my child, that you may be worthy to find a guide according to my heart, either in your confessor, or some other person who possesses authority, skill and experience in spiritual matters, and a practical knowledge of the interior life. To such a one, my child, occasionally make known your heart at certain times. Give some account of yourself, that you may know whether you advance rightly, what you must correct, and how it is to be done, on what you ought to insist, and in what manner it is to be accomplished. The subjects, concerning which this interior manifestation should be made, are usually the disclosing of the soul's state, or habitual feeling, whether it be peaceful, or agitated, what longing for a more perfect life you feel within yourself, what obstacles embarrass you, to what practices of devotion and mortification you are wont to apply yourself, what method you have in prayer and meditation, with what relish in fruit you advance by this method, what spiritual books you read, and whether they agree with your present degree of your interior life, whether you read in a manner proper and profitable, in what manner you approach the sacraments, with what preparation, with what feelings of piety, with what thanksgiving, with what results, how you make your self-examinations, with what painstaking, and with what fruit, how you perform the duties of your state of life, the obligations of your office, your ordinary actions, by what motive, or principle, whether of nature, or of grace, with what object, with what end, you have in view. In what manner you deport yourself towards others, with what disposition of heart, with what profit, or loss to yourself, and to them. With what fidelity you obey God's inspirations, how you feel disposed towards me, finally, with what degree you relish the sentiments of my heart. Do you, my child, modestly and religiously, with humble candor and docile charity, make known such and similar matters, sometimes one, and then another, according as spiritual necessity or usefulness may require? All of this, if you should perform it in this manner, you shall find easy, most useful, and full of consolation. Woe to the world, my child, woe to the heart that clings to its allurements and its vanities. It is not enough to cast Satan out of your heart, you must also expel the world. If you inwardly cherish the world, whatever else you may do wholly to amend yourself, shall be of little help to you. For the world will continue to infect your heart, will doubtless pervert and finally betray you into the power of the demon. What is the world except an inordinate or perverse love of pleasure, riches, honors, whereby its votaries are themselves corrupted and corrupt others? If you desire to know what you ought to think of the world, consider what I myself have judged of it. Behold, I passed through life doing good to all, I loved the enemies that persecuted me. When fastened to the cross, I prayed for those that crucified me, but for the world I prayed not. The world is of the devil, is wholly placed in wickedness, and cannot possess my spirit, even as falsehood cannot be truth, as corruption cannot be purity. The world is itself a proof, not only of the undeniable existence, but even of the necessity of a hell. What can there be in common between the world and my heart, since the world either openly or secretly favors every vice, while my heart breathes nothing except what is holy? The world is in league with Satan, its prince seeks for souls, to destroy them forever. My heart longs to save them all. You cannot therefore serve the world and me, for if you are the friend of the world, you become the enemy of my heart. If you are a votary of the world, you will perish with the world, but if you follow my heart, you will go into life everlasting. If you drive the world, and the maxims of the world, from your heart, so as to offer it wholly to me, the offering will be pleasing and honorable to me, and the full of glory and merit to yourself. The angels and the saints will applaud the deed, and the world itself shall be compelled to admire the lofty heroism of your mind. Blessed is he, my child, who withdraws his affections from the things of the world, and consecrates them to me alone. What do you find in the world, on account of which you would love it? Behold, all that is in the world is the desire of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And at the end of all these is death and hell. If then you love the world, or the things which are of the world, you take into your embrace everlasting perdition. What good has the world done to you, that you would devote your affections to it? It has done, and never will do you, anything but evil. How then can you give your heart to it? Trust not, my child, the smiles and blandishments of the world. They show only a covert desire to deceive and destroy you. But hearken to the invitations of my heart, that longs to save you from everlasting misfortunes, which the world is preparing for you. If you do not forsake the world will forsake you when you are spent and worn out in its service. It will lavish and mock at your destruction, and when you stand most in need of help, you shall be alone and powerless. Think frequently, which of the two, when you are about to go into eternity, you shall rather wish to have followed the world or me. Do freely, therefore, and meritoriously now, what without merit you shall be forced to do then. Apply yourself to withdraw your heart of the love of earthly things, and by a complete disengagement from it, to triumph over the world. Have confidence, my child, I have overcome the world. If you are willing, you also can vanquish it. So soon as you shall have conquered, I will give you a most delightful place in my heart. My child, the whole world is made up of deceits, and by its arts and wiles, it alludes to itself, the unwary. It holds out to man pleasures, honors, and riches, and says, all these things will I give to you, if you serve me. But, do not attend to what it promises, but to what it gives. Through the deceitful hope of pleasant things, it brings its votaries beneath the cruel tyranny of the passions, and then leads them to the ceaseless tortures of the stings of conscience. Did you ever find a worldling, even the most fortunate, whose heart was in every way satisfied? Neither shall you find such a one, even if you search the whole earth. The world indeed promises good things, but in reality, it bestows true evils only, because what it gives makes man wicked, and hinders him, by no means, from being truly happy. Even so, my child, grant they abound, in whatever things they may lust after, in this world, as they possess them, with an inordinate affection, and misuse them, they enjoy them not, except for their present and future unhappiness. Besides, they appear indeed not to care for the interior tortures of the soul, but, my child, if you could look, as I do, into their hearts, you should see how many things they suffer within, which they endeavor to hide outwardly, and you would conclude that the happiness of man consists not in having an abundance of the things of this world, but rather that he keeps his heart free from every worldly object, and calmly and permanently satisfied in me. Moreover, how long shall these things of the world last? Behold, yet a little while, and eternity shall summon them to appear. What then shall the plentifulness of delights, and other things, avail them? They shall leave the world, taking with them nothing, except the load of their sins. Would you then be willing, for the misuse of the things of time, to lose the use of those of eternity? Or, for the false possessions of earth, to forfeit the true riches of heaven? My child, if you cling to the world, you cease, in fact, to be a Christian, and you forfeit the possession of all the privileges which belong to that noble name. For at your new birth, in the waters of baptism, you did, by a solemn promise, made before heaven and earth, renounce the world and its wickedness, nor would I, without that promise, have adopted you as my child. If after this, you go again over to the party of the world, you are not only faithless, but even worse than the heathen, who made no such promise. For it is better not to promise than not to make good on what is promised. Ask the departed what they think of the world. The elect will answer that their happiness began from the time they learned to despise the things of the earth, and the reprobate will reply that they were deceived and ruined by the world. Yourself, my child, shall one day think and experience concerning the world the one or the other of these things. Be timely wise, my child, lest hereafter you feel sorrow to no purpose. Follow the footprints of the saints by withdrawing your heart from the world and keeping your affections from it. Contagion. Use the things of this world as if you did not use them, and while you tread the earth with your foot, have your heart in heaven. The more you shall withdraw yourself from creatures, the nearer you shall come to the Creator, and the more proper shall you be to receive divine gifts. If your heart be wholly disengaged from the world, so far from being hurtful to you, the world itself will be in many ways subservient to your interests. Oh, how base the whole world would grow in your sight, if you did truly consider what awaits you in eternity. My child, he who loves to serve the world, knows not the world. The world is a true tyrant, and wretched slaves are they, who serve it. How many things, what sacrifices, does it not exact from its votaries, whom for all their services, it repays, with unceasing evils. It demands that its slaves, become the base tools, for their passions, that they sacrifice, body and soul, that they damn themselves, without complaint. And when it has completed their destruction, it forsakes them, as useless wretches, fit only, for hell fire. Oh, at how great a cost do worldlings purchase their own ruin? If they did for me, the half of what they do, for the world, how happy should they be, and what saints! How cruel is the world's slavery! Under it, how many interior sufferings must be undergone! What hardships endured! And all this, in the hope of obtaining such things as, when once tasted, cause death, or such as will produce tortures, either at present, by the irksome possession of them, or after a while, by a bitter separation. Truly, it is an iron yoke, which presses on the neck of worldlings, the weight of which no one does fully know, unless he either tried it, or considers it, as he stands on the threshold of eternity. Whoever desires to be saved, must separate himself from the threshold of the world. There are those who, by their mode of life, having outwardly bidden farewell to the world, inwardly, captivated by the world, in most things, govern themselves by worldly sentiments. There are others, who by their condition in life, obliges them to live, exposed to the dangers of the world, who yet, have so divested themselves of every affection of the world, that they never defy themselves with anything that is worldly. It is therefore not the kind of life which he leads, nor the shape of dress which he wears, that connects a man with the world, or estranges him from it, but the affection of the heart, the disposition of the soul. Therefore, he that is separated in heart from the world the most, those most closely united to me, he is dearest to my heart, in whatever state of life he may live. Wherever then, my divine will has placed you, there do you serve me, in holiness. Since in every state and condition of life, which is good in itself, you can live for me, and sanctify yourself, although it remains true, that a state of life, separated from the world, conduces most to secure salvation, and to reach perfection. How many followers of the world there are, who convinced of the world's wickedness, see the necessity of renouncing it, by a change of life, yet dare not do so, too fearful, in case the world may rail at them. Is this your fortitude, you friends of the world? Great-souled, forsooth, you are all, who, through fear of empty talk, dare not do what faith dictates, what reason approves, what your greatest interest demands. What are words, but sounds passing through the air, and disappearing? Can they stir so much as a hair on your head? Shall you be so faint-hearted, my child, that, for the sake of such words, that you would draw upon yourself ruin in time, and in eternity? Choose either to serve me, to be blissful in my service, and to enjoy the enduring delights of heaven hereafter, or, to serve the world, to lead inwardly a wretched life, and, at the last, to undergo never-ending torments. Behold, life and death, good and evil, are placed before you. Whatever you prefer, will be given to you. Come my child, take up my yoke upon you, for my yoke is sweet, and my burden light. My service child is not that of a tyrant, nor of a harsh master, but of a most loving father, who is near his children, who are submissive to him, that he may help and entertain them. Love is the spirit of my service, and love finds all things easy. My commands are not heavy, and to those that love, they are exceedingly light and sweet. Try and taste how pleasant it is to serve me, how delightful to enjoy my sweetness, how good to gain the possession of the very fountain of all good things. If you seek delights, you shall find the true ones in my service alone. All the pleasures of the world are either empty or pernicious, but my consolations surpass beyond comparison. All the delights of earth, they ravish hearts, by their purity, they satiate them, by their truth. Many times, they so overwhelm man, that they give him a certain foretaste of those heavenly delights, wherewith the blessed in paradise are inebriated. He that serves me is not as the slave of the world, who toils to gather for himself treasures on earth, and in the end finds his hands empty. But he lays up for himself treasures in heaven, where neither the rust nor the moth can destroy, where thieves cannot dig them up, nor carry away. All the wealth of earth, compared with the treasures of heaven, is only dust and nothingness. If you aim to be honored, behold, what greater honor can be desired than to be with me, to be approved and distinguished by me? The glory of the world, where one man lures the other, is false and short-lived, but the glory of my service is true, and shall endure forever. Greater is the least of my servants than the Lord of a kingdom in the world. Was there ever found a man who at the hour of death repented that he had served me? Yet, at that last moment, how exceedingly do worldlings regret to have been in the service of the world! Or, if they do not bewail, how much more wretched are they? Truthful is the saying, my child, that he who serves me faithfully during life possesses two heavens, the one in time, the other in eternity, and that he who spends his life in the service of the wicked world endures two hells, one now, another hereafter. Courage, then, my child, bend yourself beneath the yoke, which is borne by the angels in heaven, and the elect on earth, and beneath which they enjoy true bliss. Take it up joyously, and bear it cheerfully. You serve the same Lord that is served by the blessed in heaven. Whilst you imitate them in their service, imitate them also in their cheerfulness. Let the slaves of sin and of the world be sad. Joy and exultation are the portion of my servants. Serve me then, but serve me with gladness. Let your heart for joy cheer up your countenance, and by the holy gaiety teach the world what blessedness there is in serving me. My child, give me your heart. To release your heart from sin, and from the world, is not enough. You must disengage it from yourself. As the complete renouncement of sin renders the friendship of God steadfast, and as the putting away of the world and all its vanities prepares the soul for the interior life, so the forsaking of oneself leads to union with me. It is therefore necessary for you to give me your whole heart, without reserving anything for yourself, if you desire to enjoy the blessedness, of which there is none greater in this life, and by which alone you can be truly happy. Your heart, child, is mine. For when it had no being, I created it. When it was lost, I sought and ransomed it. When it lay an easy prey to the enemies that were going to carry it off, I protected and preserved it. Thus, by giving me your heart, you are only giving me what is mine. But, on how many accounts do I deserve its every affection? What good do you possess in your body, or in your soul, whether in the natural, or the supernatural order, which you did not receive from my heart? How many years ago should you have been burning in hell, if I had dealt with you according to what you deserve, or had not preserved you from the sins which deserve hell, and its just punishments? But, it was my love, child, that dealt with you in so sweet and wonderful a manner, the love of my heart, with which I loved you from eternity, and with which, even till now, I have never ceased to favor you. Your whole life has been a succession of blessings, on my part, uninterrupted and manifold, nor has there been any point in time which was not marked with some new favor. And what, O child of my love, do I ask in return for all these thousands of favors? Surely, whatever I might ask of you, and whatever you may be able to give, would be far below the greatness and the number of my gifts. Yet one thing only I demand, your heart, your whole heart. It is enough if you give me that. Your heart accepted. I care nothing for whatever you may give, because beyond all else, I long for your heart. Upon who can you give your heart with more advantage? You cannot live without loving, and without giving the affections of your heart to some object. Would you give your heart to the demon, your sworn and relentless enemy? Or to the world, the demon's corrupt and corrupting ally? Woe, my child, 1,000 times, woe to you, if you give it to either of these. Do you desire to reserve the affections of your heart for yourself? But, my child, if you love yourself only, you shall find a requital in yourself alone. Now, what is the reward of self-love? Behold, self-love digs out a hell, and leads to the same. Give then your heart to me, child. I will fill it with peace, and with gladness, and with bliss. Do not desire to reserve for yourself any of your affections, for if you do this, you shall neither be admitted into the secrets of my heart, nor shall you ever be able to taste the sweetness of my love. Even more, you shall not be able to keep yourself from the danger of being perverted. Yet, it is not unusual for many, even those who wish to be considered good and pious, to keep through self-love, under a specious pretext, an affection for someone or other created object. What is there more frequent? More dangerous? What more baneful? I wish to possess your whole heart, child. I am its Lord, I, a jealous God, and its only end, its sole beatitude. Love, then, my child. It is given you to love. Love is necessary for this. Your heart was made, but you should love. What deserves to be loved? Love me, and if you cherish anything else besides, love it. For love of me alone. When beside me, you will love nothing, except for love of me. When you give entrance into your heart, to nothing, except to me, or, for love of me, then at last, you shall possess a heart, wholly pure. Wherefore, my child, give me your whole heart, as a burnt offering, for an odor of sweetness, nor do you take it back, of the same, for I hate robbery and a holocaust. Be ever mindful that whether in prosperity or adversity, there can be nowhere a better place for your heart than with me. My child, with all watchfulness, keep your heart safe for me, for from it proceeds either life or death. The greatest and most pleasing gift you can offer is to present your whole heart irrevocably to me, and you can have no better nor more wholesome employment than to preserve your heart faithfully for me. In vain do you devote your heart to me if you do not guard it sedulously, for the enemy, even without you fully being aware of it, will corrupt it and tear it away. A man loose at heart and given up to outward things may indeed, on occasion of some swift passing of hour, devote his feelings to me, but soon, when this warmth of devotion disappears, he will fall into a worse than his wonted low estate. A heart not watched over is rarely self-present, and more rarely still mindful of me. Hence, in a short time, it becomes unfeeling, and grows hardened against things spiritual. It lies open to everyone, like a public thoroughfare, through which thoughts, temptations, errors of every sort may freely pass. All its enemies freely come and go through it, and, in various ways, disturb, defile, and corrupt it. A man given to outward things never seriously gives heed to this, and thinking, from the very thought of dwelling within himself, or of busying himself, of what goes on in his heart, he endeavors to flee from himself, or to turn away his mind. And thus, the evil grows worse, and, from day to day, the condition of his heart becomes more dangerous. If you are willing to be the victim of miseries so great, remove their causes, and the effects will cease. By calling to mind the divine presence, by frequent recourse to me, check all levity, and take heed, in case you be too indulgent to your ever-changing nature, which always seeks to go abroad, which is prone to vanity, which seeks to show itself everywhere, which studies continually how it may gratify the senses. Shun things trifling and useless, shut out all outer things, in which it is not needed. To busy yourself, accustom yourself to live within yourself, and to live interiorly in such a manner, as if you were alone with me in the world. Study, always and everywhere, to possess yourself, and to be self-collected. To this, you may attain by grace, by effort, and by practice, so that it will become, as it were, natural to you. And, when you have acquired it, this self-presence of the mind will bring its own reward, for it is a boundless treasure to man. The self-collected man keeps watch over all the avenues of the heart. Me, his God and Savior, he entertains within himself. With me, he deals generously. With me, he converses familiarly. Everywhere, self-possessed, he peacefully enjoys the beloved of his soul, as is ever saved of wearisomeness, and from numberless faults. Whilst inwardly recollected, he makes progress in virtue, and in spite of every obstacle, he hastens on to perfection. Therefore, do not allow your spirit to become dissipated, my child, neither on account of the appearance of external objects, nor on account of the very throng of circumstances, nor on account of the urgency of labor, nor on account of the comfortless inward state of your soul. Observe carefully with what objects your heart busies itself, by what it is moved, towards what it tends. Turn yourself wholly to interior things, and intent on these, preserve inward peace, and rejoice in my presence. My child, in all of your works remember your last end, and you should never sin. While you have time, do whatever you can for eternity, mindful that your life is exceedingly short. Soon, you must return to the earth, out of which you were taken, for dust you are, and into dust you shall return. What is the life of man upon the earth? A vapor which appears for a little time, then vanishes away, and leaves not even a single vestige behind. Ever since you were born, you have not ceased to hasten on to death, neither is it in your power to delay your steps. Think over the time you have lived. Does it not appear like a dream? Yet, know, my child, that it shall seem still more so, when death is near, which you must meet full soon. For what is even the longest life? Behold, the number of man's days are 60 and 10 years, and if he be among the powerful, 80 years. But, compared with eternity, these years are counted as a drop in the waters of the ocean. Nay more, the time of this life, placed in comparison with the endless duration of the life hereafter, is only a point. But on this point hangs your eternity, whether of bliss or of woe. Had you lived from the beginning of the world, even to this hour, if you were now about to die, what would this life be worth to you, when you are entering into eternity, where there are neither days, or years, or ages, but which flows perpetually onward, through an uninterpreted, forever? Therefore, my child, understand well the value of time. Time is the measure of life. As much as you squander the time, so much do you lose of your life. Time exceeds in value all of the treasures of this world. With all of the riches of this world, you could not purchase a second of time, but, with time, everlasting treasures may be secured. Oh! Could the dead return from eternity, do you think they would misspend even a moment? That they would not employ it, some to free themselves from punishments, others to increase their merits? But alas, nothing is more precious than time. To many there is nothing more wearisome. These are those, not only that follow the spirit of the world, but even among such as make a profession of piety, to whom time seems a burden. They complain of its dullness, they live to waste it, they rejoice when they have spent it uselessly, but without irksomeness. And thus, they squander, in dishonoring me, and in harming themselves, that by means of which they were able and obliged to glorify me, to help their neighbor, to gather treasures of merit for eternity. Frequently, call to mind, my child, for what purpose you entered into this world. Evidently for none other, except to prepare yourself for eternity. For what else is the present life, if not a novitiate of eternity? While this brief career continues, you have numberless duties to fulfill. For there are your many faults to be atoned for, your soul to be saved and sanctified, hell to be escaped, purgatory to be avoided, heaven to be secured. You have a neighbor who you must edify and help to life everlasting. Lastly, you have to honor and glorify me, in a befitting manner, and with all your powers. If you do not do this during this life, after it, time shall be no more, and throughout eternity, you shall bear the consequences of your heedlessness and neglect. Time is mine, not yours. I have lent it to you, that you may use it to perform those things, which I demand, or desire of you. If you squander it, you shall one day be held to a most strict account, but if you use it well, you can merit at every moment a new degree of grace and of ever-enduring glory. Listen, my child, frequently imagine yourself at that point, where time shall cease, and eternity begins, and weigh accordingly, what thoughts will then occupy your mind, both concerning all the past, and concerning the whole future. Behold, eternity is your dwelling place, eternity is your country, eternity is your lasting home. You are a traveler, a stranger on earth, and a stranger upon the earth. Fleetly you pass over it, in search of your kindred in eternity. Therefore, all that have been, that are, and that shall be, must repair. There, all the great and the small, the rich and the poor, the well-formed and the misshaped, shall be without distinction, except such a one, that rises through virtue. Yet a little time, my child, and you shall also be there. There shall you live an endless life. Behold, what a lofty thought, my child! Time shall wing away its flight, ages shall succeed to ages, the world itself shall perish, but you shall never cease to be, you shall never cease to live. Oh, if you would, my child, understand this rightly. If you do not save yourself for eternity, who will save you? Most certainly no one, not even I, for, although I created you without you, I will not save you without you. And if you do not work for your salvation and perfection, how will you do it hereafter? The future is a time which perhaps you do not have, and which you can by no means promise to yourself. But even were you to possess it, the matter would grow more difficult from day to day, and would induce you to delay still further, and then you should stand at the gates of eternity, still unprepared. Believe every day to be the last, and live each day in such a manner that when the Son of Man comes, far from fearing, you may be able to rejoice at his coming. Blessed is he, who when I come, I shall find thus employed. Verily, I say, I shall place him over all of my possessions. My child, remember you must die, because it is appointed for all men to die. Do whatever you will, you cannot escape the grasp of death. The Almighty Himself has fixed the bounds, beyond which none can pass. When you have reached them, no matter what may be your condition, you shall die the death. While life endures, there is nothing more certain than death. Yet there is nothing more hidden in uncertainty than the time of death, and its attendant surroundings. You do not know when you shall die, yet hold this for certain, that you will die, when you think it not. Whether you shall see the end of this year, or even this day, of that, you are wholly ignorant. Many, counting on a long life, and regardless of making preparation for death, dreams of much to be done in the future, when suddenly death puts an end to all their plans and drags them away into eternity. Whether you shall die at home or abroad, of sickness or violence, whether strengthened with the sacraments or deprived of their soothing comforts, all this lies hidden in the mysterious unknown. However, my child, you shall die only once. If once you die well, your everlasting is secured. If once you die ill, your destruction is endless and irreparable. O inconceivable stupidity of the heart of man! Very many do not fear living in a state of damnation, and yet it is certain that they shall die unexpectedly. The unchangeable declaration remains firm: the Son of Man will come when he is not expected. For a reason worthy of God's wisdom, the time of his coming remains hidden, that men may keep themselves in the state of grace, ever always. But, as many disregard this, it happens that not a few die without being prepared, and in a twinkling are buried in hell. Woe therefore to them whom death shall overtake in a bad state. When they are dead, hope shall be no more, because from a death in time, they fall into a death of eternity, and from finite evils, they pass over to those which are infinite. Most wretched is the death of sinners. Frightful is the death of the lukewarm, but precious and filled with consolation is the death of them that have sanctified themselves. Blessed are they who end a saintly life with a holy death. They reach the end of their labors, their afflictions, their trials, and of all dangers, and they enter into a bliss secure and complete. How differently are different persons impressed at the moment of death! Some are terror-stricken at the thought of the past, of the present, and of the future. Others are filled with the comfort. These feel their hearts dilating, those feel them compressed with anguish, but all wish they had lived piously. To be well prepared to die is the greatest consolation of him that sees the near approach of death. To how great a danger of dying unprepared is he exposed, who thinks of making ready only when death is at the door. Then either time is wanting, or the pangs of sickness hinder the use of the soul's powers, or passions still have their wonted sway, whilst the habit of neglecting to correspond to grace still prevails, and, meanwhile, the devil's assaults are greater than ever before. Look forward then, my child, before the night overtakes you, when no one can securely work, but when everyone begins to gather what he has sown. A good life is the best preparation for death. It is generally true that he that lives well dies well. Daily, before taking your nightly rest, put your soul in order, as if that same night you have to set out for eternity. Death is a good counselor, my child, therefore before you undertake, or leave anything of importance, ask advice of death, that you may know when it calls you, what you would have liked to have done, what you would regret to have left undone. By perfect purity of heart, you can make your death most safe and consoling. Take no counsel of the flesh, when there is the question of securing a happy death, but even in spite of its murmurings, pursue what is good, that in the end, you may save both the body and the soul. After death, your body shall become the food for worms, and whatever remains of it will be the prey of corruption. Yet, thereafter, it shall arise again, whether you are willing or not willing, to share the everlasting destiny of the soul. Let death be most familiar to you, my child. If you are faithful in asking its advice, and in following it, it will be your solace in adversity, it will keep you in due bounds in prosperity, it will be useful to you in all things, it will not cease to do you good, and in the end, it will free you from this place of exile, and introduce you into your blissful country, in heaven. My child, so soon as you have gone into eternity, you shall find yourself before my judgment seat, to give an account of your life, and to hear the decision of your lot, forever. I, myself, the searcher, and the knower of hearts, to whom all power is given in heaven, and on earth, will preside over this judgment. All and everyone, whether they be willing or not, must make their appearance before me, the judge of the living and the dead, to receive the final sentence. It is not possible to appeal to another tribunal. What is just, I will judge, neither by gifts nor by promises will I be conciliated, nor shall the prayers of anyone change my heart, neither will I be moved by repentance. That day shall be a day of justice, not of mercy. Then shall each one receive according to his works. What shall your feelings be then, my child, when you shall stand alone before the infinite majesty, with nothing except your works alone, whether they be good or evil? Then will the devil arise in judgment against you, and accuse you, ready to drag you to hell. Your guardian angel will stand up against you, to bear witness to the truth of what is brought against you. Even your own conscience will accuse you, and overwhelm you with alarm, dread, and terror. Thus accused, with none to take your defense, you shall wither away for fear, nor shall you dare to open your mouth. For all things, whether they be known or unknown, are in my sight, nothing is hidden from my eyes. Yet, searching, I will search the heart from the first dawn of its reason, even to the last breath of its life. From it, I will draw forth every evil, be it public or private, whether its own works, or that of another, whether great or small, whatever you have committed, by thought, and word, and deed, and omission. And not only of things evil, but also of those that are vain or idle, or useless, will I exact an account. Even more, justice itself, will I judge. I will weigh, in the scales of the sanctuary, even your good deeds, and see what was wanting in them, either in the motive, in the manner of doing, or in the end intended, scrutinizing whether all was supernatural and perfect. Then many things, which during life shall be found void and evil, then the showery resemblances of the lukewarm shall be seen as they are, and shall be cast aside, as dry stubble, fit only to be burned. And searching still further, I will seek out the fruit of all the favors which I bestow, of all the graces, of all the means of salvation and perfection. Yes, I will summon time itself against you, and I will thoroughly investigate in what manner you did use it. What shall you do then, O sinner, when even the just shall hardly be secure? Above you, you shall descry heaven, uncertain; below the yawning abyss, at your right, angels as witnesses; at your left, demons enraged; before you, the supreme arbiter of life and death. Ah, my child, now act with care, that you may then find safety. Now it is easy, then it shall be impossible. Follow now the invitings of my mercy, that you may not then feel the severity of my justice. Now, withdraw yourself completely from the depraved world, that then, with reprobate worldlings, you may not be forced to hear, "Depart ye accursed, into everlasting fire." Now, untrammeled by nothing of the earth, follow the saints, that with them, you may be worthy to hear, "Come ye blessed of my Father, possess the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." My child, so long as men live, I do in some manner love them all. The good, I cherish with a divine affection, the wicked, I tolerate, because I await their conversion, and I go in search of those that are straying. My heart, wherein I bear them all written, devises and uses 1,000 ways and means to save all. But, if there are any that disappoint the hopes of my mercy, if they come to judgment, laden with the guilt of grievous sin, confirmed in their obstinacy, I will blot them altogether out of my heart, and with the thunderbolts of my justice, I will hurl them into the depths of hell. There, they are bereft of heaven and all its delights, and never shall they behold my countenance in the kingdom of my glory. They endure an infinite punishment, because they have lost an infinite good. Plunged in a shoreless lake of fire, they burn and suffer forevermore, and the smoke of their tortures mounts up unendingly. All evils rush upon them. There, every sense of the body, every power of the soul, shall have its own and proper punishment. In that, whereby each has sinned, shall he be specially tortured with pains. There, the unclean are forever devoured with a burning heat, overwhelmed with intolerable stench, gnawed by never-dying worms. There, the wickedly rich are oppressed by extreme want, and suffer a most frightful hunger and thirst. They shall forever find no release. There, in hell, they that strongly sought after honors are infinitely debased and despised, and trodden underfoot by the very demons. There, no interruptions are felt in torments, even for a moment, but they continue and shall continue, forever and ever. There, everyone receives, according to his deserts. The place, the masters, the company, everything, superadds to the punishments, in an inconceivable manner. What can there be more terrible than the dungeons of hell, where no ray of light, no order, but continued darkness, and everlasting horror dwell? What more cruel than the demons, who exhaust their arts to invent new tortures, and their strength to inflict them? What more gloomy than that wretched throng of sufferers, howling endlessly, hopelessly? As many companions as there are suffering, so many new torments are experienced. Behold, so shall he be punished, who is unwilling to serve me, his God, his Creator, his Redeemer, his unwearied benefactor. Be not afraid, my child, of the punishment of the damned. They themselves are not astounded, but confess that they receive things worthy of their deeds. No one goes to the torments of hell against his will. All the reprobate rush there of their own free choice. Therefore, they complain of no one except themselves. They confess that I am infinitely bountiful, and acknowledge that they are exceedingly wicked. The gate of hell is sin. The paths that lead man to the gates of hell are the paths that allures man to sin. How many have perished by an unlawful desire for pleasure, by an inordinate love of riches, by a wicked pursuit of riches, by a wicked pursuit of honors? Long then, for nothing, my child, which may entangle you in its toils, and afterwards hurl you into the abyss. Neither is it less dangerous in all things to seek yourself. How many, alas, there are, who seem to begin well, but because they do not abandon self, relapse at length, and are thrust into deeper evils, and finally, are miserably lost. To escape hell then, it is not enough to have begun well, but it is necessary to have persevered in well-doing. Forsake sin, and the world forever, lest you be forsaken, in the end by me. Forsake moreover yourself, lest by your own weight, you be dragged down to the lowest depths. Do all, dearly beloved, endure all, that you may avoid never-ending torments. All the labors and afflictions of this life are as nothing when compared with the sufferings of hell. Here upon earth, in a short time, there shall be an end to labors and sorrows, but there is no being redeemed out of hell. My child, the eye has not seen, the ear has not heard, nor has the heart of man conceived, what things I have prepared for them that love and serve me faithfully, to the end. Who can portray for those who have not experienced it, what heaven is, that blissful abode, from which all ills are banished, in which there is an overflowing of all good things? No labor shall be there, no sorrow, no temptations, no danger. All these things have passed away. With mortal life, they have given place to perfect rest, to endless joy, to a peace that cannot be disturbed, to a security that none can take away. There shall be neither cold, nor heat, neither inclemency, nor change of seasons, neither unpleasant days, nor gloomy nights. Those realms of bliss are illuminated by my everlasting glory, softened by divine serenity of my countenance, enlivened by the infinite sweetness of my heart, so newness of a heavenly spring, forevermore. Blessed are they that dwell there. They neither hunger nor thirst, nor are they subject to anything that is unpleasant, nor shall they be weakened in vigor forever. There they are, replenished and inebriated from the torrent of the delights of God. They flourish in perpetual youth, and immortal, they shine brighter than the sun, for all eternity. My child, there you shall behold me, as I am, and gaze upon me, face to face, in the most entrancing splendors of my majesty. There, by the institution of my infinite perfections, you shall be rapt with admiration, and overflow with bliss. In the excess of your joy, you shall of your own accord burst forth in boundless praises and exaltation of my most lovely attributes. Then also, you shall understand the mysteries of faith, and the secrets of nature. All the science of philosophers is but ignorance, when compared with the knowledge possessed by the least of the elect. Then shall you view all the displays of my everlasting kingdom, its unbounded treasures, its ever-enduring dignities. At the contemplation of a loveliness so varied and so great, you shall be inflamed with an ineffable love for me. Then, my child, then will you love me in a perfect manner, without any division of your affections, without remissness, without end. Now, you are sometimes in trouble, because you do not know whether you are worthy of love, or of hatred. Then, to your unutterable joy, you shall be loved by me, throughout eternity. Then shall you repose on my heart, with perfect security, and you shall taste how delightful it is to love me, and to melt away in my love. You shall be inebriated with an exceedingly great sweetness, and rapt above yourself, you shall swim in an ocean of love, with the angels and the saints, amid jubilant hymns of love, forevermore. Thus you shall spend ages, and while away eternity, ever wishing and ever longing to love, and at the same time, ever sated and ever blissful with love. Then, my child, shall you possess me, and enjoy me forever, which is the completing of beatitude. You shall be wholly mine, and I will be wholly yours. You shall enjoy me in a manner ever new, ever most delightful. In me, you shall possess every good, and have whatever you can wish or desire. Let your mind conceive, if possible, how beautiful, how wonderful, how charming, all things are there, how rapturous, to behold the glory and exquisite adornment of the heavens, to be present among the choirs of the angels, to exult unceasingly with the saints, to contemplate and love the most blessed Virgin, the glorious Queen of the most heavenly kingdom, and in return, to attract her sweet looks, and gain her love. What delightful dwellings, O my child! What pleasant companionship! What charming beatitude, and all to endure, forever and ever! Therefore, lift up your eyes and see what awaits you, if you are faithful to me, even to the end. Be of good cheer, my child, and as much as you are able, with the divine grace, and your own cooperation, cleanse your heart and preserve it pure, for nothing defiled, be it ever so little, shall enter into heaven. But, the purer you are here, the more glorious you shall be, There, and the nearer to me, and the nearer to my heart,